We're going to continue our callers in just a few minutes because we've been talking about how much of your freedom are you willing to give up in the name of being safe. And we got a lot of folks calling in. We want to get to them. But I want to bring in Bill Murray because this is an issue that you may not think has anything to do with it. I'm going to tell you it has everything to do with it. Because going on in Syria right now is this discussion, and actually whether or not people there, in the name of their government, are protecting their freedoms, are trampling all over them. And it's a great way to sort of help us to understand that when people either give up or their basic freedoms are taken away, what happens when government is in absolute, complete control of their lives, which is really the fight going on in Syria right now. Now, we're being told that the fight is essentially between the forces of President Assad and his very brutal government, which is understandably killed about, well, we don't know, somewhere between 70 and 100,000 of his own people. But are the people who are rebelling against the Syrian government, are they good guys? Are they people that are just secularists who want to have an open government and democracy and have good elections? Well, what you may hear in the next few minutes may shock you because you're not hearing it in most of the mainstream media. I'm joined by Bill Murray, who has been in touch with people in the nation and people who are being viciously and violently killed. Bill, welcome back to the Mike Huckabee Show.
Great to be on with you, Governor.
So, Bill, help us understand. I mean, you hear guys like John McCain say, well, we need to get in and help these rebels. Who are these rebels?
That's the problem. Right now, even the New York Times has come out and flat said there are no secular forces in Syria at all. They have the New York Times said, quote, the Islamist character of the opposition reflects the main constituency of the rebellion, which has been led since the start by Syrian Sunni Muslim majority, mostly in conservative, marginalized areas. They said nowhere in rebel-controlled Syria is there a secular fighting force to speak of. That's the New York Times. That's not Assad or anyone else. The situation there is brutal. And the Christians are taking it. And I want to say something, too. You said at the beginning that Assad had killed 70,000 people. And I know that's the general line. But here's the reality. 70,000 people have died. And they all haven't been killed by Assad. I look at the tapes of the beheadings by the Chechen rebels that are there. The bishops that I sent you the email about, the two bishops that have been kidnapped, they're in the hands of Chechens. The head of the terror organization in the European Union has said that there are at least 1,000 Europeans fighting against Assad, and they're afraid they're going to come back. They're Muslims from Europe that are fighting there. This is becoming a training ground for radical Muslims from all over the world going in there to fight in jihad against what was a secular government. It wasn't the nicest government in the world, but it was a secular government. And to be very honest with you, it protected the Christians. In fact, hundreds of thousands of Christians that fled Iraq went to Syria because it was the only safe place in the Middle East left for them to go.
I don't think you're saying that Assad is a good guy, that he's a guy that we should have loved and appreciated and had a great relationship with, because his actions toward the Israelis are atrocious, and in some cases to his own people. But this sounds like a situation very similar to Egypt, where we're being sold on the idea that this uprising is just a bunch of young, idealistic freedom fighters who want to have a wonderful westernized world much like ours, when in fact it's a bunch of radicalized Muslim Brotherhood types, not specifically in Syria. But that's what happened in Egypt, and things are worse now than they were under Hosni Mubarak.
Well, yes, talking about Egypt, just 2 weeks ago, St. Mark's Cathedral was attacked, and there are now videotapes that are being shown that not only did the police stand by, and it talked about mobs, people think they were throwing rocks. They were up on the rooftops firing machine guns into St. Mark's Cathedral, and the Egyptian police were protecting them. Now that's under the Muslim Brotherhood. These people that are fighting Assad, many of them have already declared their allegiance to al-Qaeda. On the rebel side, the black flag of jihad is everywhere. This is a bleak situation, and you're absolutely right. I mean, Assad is a dictator. He was a dictator. There's no doubt about that. But under him, he was a secular dictator. No woman was allowed to wear a hijab, religious clothing, at a public school. Now we have the flip of that in the rebel-controlled areas. Women in school, young girls in school, are required to wear burqas in order to go to the rebel-controlled schools. We had a bad choice here. But the question is, we're getting rid of a bad guy, and are the people that we're putting in worse? I think if you ask the two bishops that were just kidnapped there in northern Syria, they would probably question now which was the worst way to go.
It's almost like the devil you know may be less fearful than the devil you don't know, which is kind of what we're getting into in Syria. And Bill, to make that application to what we've been talking about this hour before you came on, a lot of people in Syria were willing to believe that these so-called, rebels were coming to fight for their freedom. They were trying to make them more free, when in fact that's not what's going to be the net effect. Certainly did not happen in Egypt. And the question is, if in the United States, if we have increasing levels of sort of police powers that are given in unconstitutional levels, because it's going to make us safer. I mean, I'm not saying we're moving toward the kidnapping of Catholic bishops in the United States. I'm not making that comparison, although I'm sure some nut website will say I did. But it's just that once we start turning over our own individual freedoms and liberties to any entity in the name of making us more safe, we really can get in a lot of trouble in a hurry, can't we?
Well, yes, we can, and actually, in a way, that is what happened to both the Christians in Iraq, and it's what's happening to the Christians in Syria, because to a certain extent in Egypt, they were willing to accept the secular dictatorship of Saddam Hussein and in Iraq, and accept the secular dictatorship of Assad in Syria for the security that they got of it, because they were allowed to practice their religion freely, to build their churches, etc. Now, they didn't have freedom, but they had freedom to be who they were, and they traded off a lot of things in order to have that. Now they face literal extermination at the next group that's coming along. So handing over your freedoms to no one, and as far as our country is concerned, we have a militarized police force. I think anybody has to face that. I'm 67 years old. I remember the kind of weapons and armor police had in the 1960s, and it was a 6-gun and no bulletproof vests, and a car with a 6-cylinder engine. And now the little county where I live, that I don't think has a 75 people in the sheriff's department has a tank. And it's all with federal money. The police are being militarized by federal money, and this is not the route that we need to go.
Bill, why have we not heard more about the rebels in Syria? There have been a few reports that say at least some of them are connected to al-Qaeda, that these aren't good guys. How come the media has been so silent, and even our own politicians have virtually said, we got to go in there and help those rebels, when in fact we may be helping people that are worse than the ones we got?
We are in a main enemy syndrome. Syria was an ally of Iran, and yes, they were anti-Israel. But I have to say this about Assad: he said horrible things about Israel and all kind of other things, and made all kind of threats. But this was a nation that wanted to exist, and it wasn't ideologically centered. So he never had any intention of actually invading Israel. He didn't want to face defeat. The people that are taking over there are ideologically motivated by extreme radical Islam. They are already firing into Israel from the Golan portion of the Golan Heights that they control. Assad has pulled his troops out of there. As to why there's no media, I think we have got the mindset that have developed a mindset in the media that since Iran is a bad guy, and that anything that we harm or destroy or do away with that has any kind of association with him, that's a good thing. I don't know. I just don't know. I don't understand why these two bishops were on the way. They went up to try to release two priests that were kidnapped 2 weeks before. When they were kidnapped, they were on a humanitarian mission. I don't know. I don't know why this isn't. I try to make excuses for the media, but I'm going to be very honest with you, Governor. I can't figure this one out. And this isn't about one denomination. One of these bishops is Syriac, the other is Greek Orthodox. They were going up there to save one Catholic priest and one Orthodox priest, and they got kidnapped as well. And they've been kidnapped by Chechens, which probably means they're already been beheaded. But why nobody will touch this in the Western media? I just can't imagine. Even Al Jazeera reported on it, although they didn't refer to them as kidnapped. They referred to them as captured.
Well, Bill, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is because I want to make sure we give voice to people who are being brutalized like this, and I appreciate your coming on to tell about it. As you get more information, please let us know, because we want to open up the microphone and make sure that American people are hearing the full story of what's happening there, so they'll be prepared to hear the full story of what's happening here. Always a pleasure to talk to you, Bill, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. God bless.